What up, Brisbane? How we doing? Yeah! It has been way too long for me. And I just have to add, off the back of that intro, that Hadley was the first poet on stage to congratulate me for winning the National Slam, and now I know that was a load of bullshit. I'm going to do a couple of poems for you guys. Is that cool? Yeah! Nice. So, although we've been having an amazingly fun and beautiful evening this evening, I'm going to bring some bad news, but I think it's important that we understand. I was lucky enough to visit the country of my ancestors, Greece, in April and May of this year. I got to tour with a hip-hop group, and I got to do the first ever spoken word sort of tour over there. And it's this really left-wing, kind of anti-fascist and very strong left-wing group over there. And 2 nights ago, one of their members, or one of their friends and other rappers from that big group that is in Greece, called Active Member, was killed for saying something against fascists in Greece. So for those of you that don't know, there's a group in Greece called Golden Dawn, and they are basically a neo-Nazi group that have established themselves quite strongly politically in Greece. And someone has spoken out against them in raps and in public, and his life has been taken from him. So I'm going to dedicate my set to him, and I'm just going to dedicate my set to all the poets and all the rappers and all the writers that have ever been persecuted for just saying their truth. And that we understand that tonight we've gathered to say our truths. And they might be funny, they might be quirky, they might be political, they might be whatever they are, but we are legitimate in doing that, no matter where we are in the world, and there's nothing to be persecuted for. And I really respect the library for keeping this alive, and Ghost Boy for keeping this alive, because there's not much else in the world. So this first poem is about my grandmother. My grandmother grew up between 2 wars in Greece, lost her brother Christo to the Germans, and named my mother Christina after him. Rare for a Greek woman, she had a divorce at 50 and has lived for 30 years with his photo still in the spare room. She is a green thumb. She drinks cordial from my own mandarins, drinks tea from my own chamomile bush, and picks tomatoes whenever I say to her, I feel like a salata, she hardly went to school. And one day, when talking of all the time that I've spent studying at university and admiring all 3 different types of basil she has growing in her garden, she says to me, Luka, eat 2 leaves basil every day. Good for the blood, good for the brain. They don't teach that at university. And when my brother says to her, you know, Yaya, you're really smart. You really know a lot. She always replies, yes, Celia, I'm very education. So one day, I decide to ask my Yaya about racism and whether it's okay for Greeks to still hate the Turks for what they did to us in the past. And she says, racism? No. Just because some people naughty doesn't mean you throw the rest in the rubbish. Her name is Katarina Petunas, but her maiden name is Sarandavga. And Sarandavga literally means 40 eggs. And as the story goes, one of her great-grandfathers was challenged by another villager to see if he could eat an omelette made with 40 eggs without getting sick. And anyone who knows my appetite will know I am very proud to say he won that bet. And so the nickname Sarandavga then became the family name and was passed down the generations to my Yaya. And today, it's her birthday. So I say what we always do. Nai katustisis. Now you live to 100, but she's 83. So instead of thanking me, she says, 100? Oh, God, me, no thank you. Maybe a couple more years, then I go to sleep. Where are you going to go to sleep, Yaya? In the cemetery. I already buy a little house there. I don't afraid. Until then, she'll keep stopping me from doing the dishes every time she cooks us a meal. She'll keep calling me to see if I'm too cold when I'm visiting Melbourne. She'll keep trying to slip me a $50 note every time I visit. And she'll keep telling me, Luka, eat 2 leaves basil every day. Good for the blood, good for the brain. They don't teach you that at university. So this next piece is something that I've had requested from a gentleman at the back, a good friend of mine, Joseph, who swears he's going to enter the slam next year. So my bet with him is that if I do this poem now, he has to enter the slam next year. Is that cool? Can we hold him to that? Please resist me, colonize me, compromise me, conflict me. Please don't risk me. If you see me at the airport, please come and frisk me. Please resist me, colonize me, compromise me, and conflict me. Please don't risk me. Please call me stupid because your resistance brings my evolution. Please resist me. Call me a wog, it's brought us so close together I could call me a squad. Please resist me. Lock me in solitary confinement. I'll close my eyes and admire the quality of the silence. I write rhymes in my mind honestly and define them, solidly redefine them, memorize them until like a diamond. When I come out I'll be better than when I arrived in. Please resist me, because resistance brings evolution, and you've resisted me so consistently. I thank you for your contribution. I'm a happy man. Your stupidity has made me strong. I've developed wings, a thick skin, and this here opposable thumb. It holds my pen which loads my explodable tongue, so without loading a gun I'm killing high quarters of unemotional punks. Sorry. You also taught me to speak French. I learned it when you kept keeping me at arm's length. And then I learned Italian just to expand my head, and Greek to learn from where my ancestors had fled. And then I learned some Yanua just to show the people of this land some respect. You see, it's been your example that has led me to leave you for dead. So don't trust me. I'm risky, insurmountable, unaccountable. I'm an undeniable, unreliable, maniacal liability. I fire soliloquies and my liturgies literally leave a literary litany. You see, when I was little, they told me I was illegitimate, illiterate, and limited. Little did they know that in a minute I'd be killing it. I'm vivid like in cinnamon, so my synonym is vividness. I stick it like I'm cinnamon and kill it like a militant. I live it like a citizen, you live life like imprisonment. Besides, indigenous immigrant might be the most legitimate of citizens, so it's better to live a life like us, isn't it? So this is not my book. This is the Officeworks version of my book. But my book is something that I've never had a book, and as a spoken word artist and a poet, I never thought that I would need to have my stuff on paper, but it's gotten me this far, and here it is. So the book is called The Future Ancients, and I'm just going to perform the title piece from that before I say goodnight. So thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. In the future, the history books will study us. Our cities will have been renamed, our language is slanged into something new, and this moment will one day be ancient. The future ancients dig theoretical trenches between settlement and invasion, shoot rifles at each other from across the plains, and place prayers within the screaming bullets. They shroud their heads in mourning, and afterwards line their soldiers up in cemeteries like voodoo dolls for God. The future ancients will be encased behind glass in museums. Greek ragtag squadrons with backpacks, gas masks, and chunks of Athenian columns for weapons will be installed in exhibitions of either terrorists or freedom fighters, depending on who it is that wins this time. They will stand side by side with wax dummies of good men and shirts and ties who never leave suburban blocks but are called to duty through computer screens, shooting unmanned cannons in faraway places, and are called things like husband, son, sweetheart, and lieutenant. The future ancients will have their artifacts locked in storage. Shards of Molotov cocktails from the Egyptian Revolution will be tagged and filed next to Michael Jackson albums, smartphones, Playboy magazines, and I hope the Australian flag. The future ancients will be found by future archaeologists preserved and embalmed in tequila and Chanel No. 5, alongside pop star prophets who thought they were somehow saying something new this time. They will find them, praying to gods who believe in science, on a planet of do's and don'ts, of factions and fractions, of us's and them's and we's and whatevers and maybe nevers and never agains. The future ancients will be found in tombs of cheap liquor, in databases called tradition, on screens of culture, as relics of broken signals. They will hardly be visited as bones, but remembered in the symbology of pixel and paranoia. The future ancients will be remembered depending on what we decide. Since democracy has been paraphrased, sustainability called primitive, refugees criminalized by the first invaders, and indigenous cultures lined up side by suicide in prisons like voodoo dolls. For the future, the textbooks will study us. Our cities will have been renamed, our language is slanged into something new, and our stories will be the only link left between our objects and their meanings. They will try to twist and turn our histories based on what they find of us, but our voices are the only artifacts worth keeping alive. So whose lips will we honour? On whose tomb will we lay our tears? Those who risked everything to speak but spoke anyway. Those that gave meaning in the darkness. Those who not only spoke but gifted us a moment of silence in this madness so that we could learn to hear ourselves. Those thoughts are your artifacts, your jewellery, your jade, your bronze, and your words are your monuments, your stone, bone, Parthenon, and Colosseum, everything worth leaving behind. And silence is how we surrender. Our speech is the architecture of fate. So are we pharaohs of fallacies or empresses of nothing? What will they engrave beneath our statues in the ancient future? Thank you.